Hi, I'm Mary Long, and I'm with the American Hospital Association AHA Solutions, and I'm here today in Tampa, Florida, with Mo Cassidy, CEO and founder of Physician Leadership Institute, and also the author of a brand new book on physician leadership, The Prescription for Healthcare Transformation. So welcome, Mo. We're really glad that you're here with us today.
Glad to be here, Mary.
And as healthcare moves into the second curve, the demands being placed on its leaders are greater than ever. Those who succeed in the era of value-based care are the ones committed to a path of transformational change. Strategies and leadership that brought us to this first curve of healthcare, volume-based care, will not enable us to achieve what's needed for value-based care, the second curve. So organizational and ultimately healthcare success is dependent upon a culture committed to greater care coordination and collaborative leadership in all areas of performance improvement. And Mo, we know this is the area that you've been working on, so let's get to the heart of it. Why do we need a different leadership as we move from volume-based care to that second curve of value-based healthcare?
Yeah, so clearly when we look at healthcare and compare it to other industries have been transforming over time. Then we went from the craft age, where everybody is known for his or her craft, and the only way you can learn it is by doing an apprentice with someone else, to an industrial age, the Ford eras, to now the information age, and actually we're going through one more age, it's called the Google age, which so much information is around us. In healthcare, we're just trying to figure out how to even go from the first age of a craft age to the industrial and then eventually to the information age. And when you find yourself in this mist of chaos, and where there's a lot of questions and less answers, as Harry Truman said, in those type of moments, this is when we need leaders to be able to seize those opportunities and really guide us through that transition. So leadership is in this moment is as critical as any other time for us in healthcare.
Building on that, Mo, why is physician leadership integral to achieving high performance in healthcare?
So we need leadership everywhere, and we need all of us to step up our games to really enable this transition from the first curve to the second curve. Physicians are in the midst of it, and compared to other professions, they've been always taught and emphasized on the clinical side of their talents and skills. And then the other skills that we really need in the new world, which has to do with collaborations, empathy, communication, dealing with difficult situations, those things were never emphasized. And to be able to even be at the same par of engaging, collaborating with others, we have to really spend time on engaging, developing our physician first so that they can really be an effective team member of the rest of the team.
Mo, let's take a moment and step back to make sure we're all on the same page. What is the definition of leadership?
Yeah, so if you ask 10 people in the room, they will give you 10 different answers. And leadership is really, at the end of the day, is the assessment by others of our ability to take care of their concerns and lead them effectively. But for us, we frame leadership in the 5 disciplines. The first one is called to lead with purpose. And in healthcare, it's easy answer. What is our purpose? Is really to take care of our patients and their family, and being able now to do it at the most best outcome and the most effective way. So leading with purpose and always being anchored with that is the first discipline of leadership. The second one is really about leading with strategies. And to be in the world where it's changing so much, do we even have a strategy? Do we know where we're going? How are we going to get there? But also, are we going to be able to be agile and adaptable along the way to be able to do that and be able to bring other people along the way? The third is really around, before we lead others, let's first lead ourselves and understand who we are and how we show up in the authentic selves that we are. So really reflecting on our being first, and then that our being is really what's going to really engage others through the conversation and really focusing on the results. The fourth one is really about leading others. And that's, I think, the difference between the first curve and the second curve. Leadership is we're really now not only going to focus on the doing side, but the being side. And how do I engage the heart? How do I see you and see my colleague as a human being first and take time to build a relationship with them and then know them as a human being before I really engage them into the human doing and focusing on the result. And the more we have that as our base, the probably going to be more effective at producing the results that we want to have together. And the fifth one is, at the end of the day, is to really produce the results and be able to now, instead of just going from strategy to results immediately and just do, now I'm going to almost take a detour and say, I'm going to have a strategy anchored in my purpose. I'm going to know how I show up. I'm going to engage others along the way so that we can have a collective better results together. So that's really our definition of leadership.
Why do physicians shy away from engaging in a collaborative leadership?
So this one, I've been studying this and been fascinated by it for a long time. And our work with the College of Medicines, with new students, with graduates, with working physicians, it's always been fascinated, why is it that they shy away from that? Even though, as we know, that if they're engaged, outcome is going to be much, much better. There's studies after studies that demonstrated that outcomes are better when physicians are engaged and physicians are also leading with other counterpart. So it's always been fascinating. Why do they shy away? So we kind of put it, there's probably three buckets, okay, of why. The first one is really around perception. They perceive that you may have, I shared with you there's a problem, I may have not done anything with it. So they see it as, why should I even bother? Because nothing is going to change. So historical comes into play. The other is the perception of, well, I'm already a leader. I used to say something and people do it, and so thus I'm a leader. Why do I even need to do anything different? So there's that perception. And then there's the other perception is going and being a leader and working with administration and nursing and everybody else is like going to the dark side. And so there's that bucket of perception. The second major cause of being hesitant and shying away is around a cultural element. What I was referring to as the expert culture that is really look at more being autonomous, more value peer leadership than being told what to do. So how do we really make sure that we develop physician leader to really engage their peer? And lastly, the third one is really around the skill sets, the leadership skill sets, not the clinical, but the leadership skill. So having the time to be able to acquire those skills without losing the productivity, and then the relevance. Don't just send me to a place where somebody's lecturing at me, make it relevant. So those three, perception, cultural, and leadership skills, has always been a key factor of why we see physicians being reluctant or shying away from change.
Mo, what's been your experience? What's the most effective way to develop physician leaders?
Glad you asked that, because over the years, we're working with so many physicians, we always ask them what really would make your time worthwhile. And they tell us really 4 areas of concerns for them that we incorporate in the way we will engage them and make sure that we address them. And those 4 center around, the first one is, don't waste my time. Physicians are busy, and the last thing you want to do is being able to put them into classrooms and lecture at them. So that's why it has to be evidence-based. And so we do is that we make it very evidence-based by focusing on collecting 360-degree feedback around their perception about their leadership and then other people's perception about leadership. And this is a great eye-opening, create a disruptive dilemma for them. It brings more data and evidence, but it also allows us to target the intervention and the programs and design it in an effective way that really doesn't waste their time. The second aspect of a concern for them is to protect their productivity. They're being measured on RVUs and their time spent seeing physicians or in the OR. And what the last thing they want to do is to be put on a plane and being shipped somewhere, dipped for a day and sent back. And actually they tell us they're even more frustrated because now they learn and we gave them a new set of glasses that they see the world, but then their peer and the rest of the organization haven't heard that. And so they're even more frustrated by sending them somewhere. So they would rather learn together in their own environment and work together and learn together with others. So leadership becomes about not only developing the individual, but developing the collective team together as a cohort. The third concern that they have, and it would be important to make sure that if you're building a program in your own organizations, to make sure that also you take that into consideration. And it has to do with how physicians have learned over time, from medical schools to residency to fellowship. And it's about the see one, do one, teach one approach. And so anything that we put together really has to be an applied learning. It has to be experiential. It has to have a lab. So that's why in all our programs, we work with the organization to define a problem or a situation or an initiative that the organization really needs physicians to be engaged and engage them by that. And it ends up not being about the project or the initiative, it's about applying those leadership skills, such as how do I strategize about it? How do I engage others? How do I influence? How do I hold my peer accountable? How do I commit? How do I communicate effectively? How do I influence you? So it becomes truly the lab of the learning that they're acquiring through the program. And finally is make it very relevant to my world. Don't bring me case studies that are generic about Coca-Cola or about what's going on in other industry. I want to learn also how do I apply that to what's going on here. So let me tell you about my conflict situation I'm dealing with, my administrator or my peer, and let's really simulate that in an environment that is safe and I can really reciprocate with my colleague. So those are, if you really want to build a program that's really engage the physician, you really want to address those four concerns of making it more relevant, more focused, productivity, it's applied learning, and it's relevant to their environment.
Well, let's pull all these things together and building on that, how would an organization look different or act differently with engaged physician leadership?
Yeah, so let's go back to what we were contrasting between the environment of the first curve to the second curve. And organizations that really recognizes that they need to move collectively the whole leadership team and the whole leadership skill set to a higher level. Really, you can feel when you walk in through the door that they're different than anybody else. You see true focus on the purpose, and which is the patient, and everything is revolving around that. So you feel it whether you're the patient, whether your family member is a patient. So there's focus on the purpose. Communication is wide open and ubiquitous and seamless. And so the way the team communicate with each other, the way the physician and the nurse and administrators are all on the same page and communicating effectively, there's openness to deal with difficult situation. So they don't shy away from dealing with the brutal facts and then being able to engage through that. There's focus from a driving results. There's focus on not only just driving the quality, but also the way we deliver the service and the cost of it. So you see all of that. But most importantly, you see that there's a language of engagement versus a language of blame. And you feel, and here's an example of organizations that we're working with. The administrator told me, is that, Mo, I know when I know a fully engaged physician that have gone through a development versus not. And it is when someone walks into my office and says, we have a problem, and I'm here to brainstorm with you and engage into how we can solve it together, versus someone walking in and say, you have a problem, you guys need to fix it, and walk away. That's the difference between an organization that has truly leadership versus an organization that is trying to figure out how to make it.
In the end, Mo, how does physician leadership make a difference to patients?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because at the end of the day, we have to always bring it back to the purpose of why we're here, and it's all about the patient. In an environment where there's high level of collaborative leadership, the patient is really the beneficiary of it in the way we address them, in the way we engage them, in the way we collaborate before we engage them, in the way we move information and communicate, in the way we resolve our issues before we engage the patient, in the way we prioritize our work. All of it is the patient is getting more efficient way of caring, a better and more
emotionally and empathetically driven communication, a more efficient way that we're working and delivering their care. All of that is at the end of the day comes back to the patient.
Mo, can you give us an example of an organization that's made the connection between transformational success and physician leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So one clear example that I'm very excited about is Moffitt Cancer Center here in Tampa, Florida. They're an NCI designated comprehensive cancer center, and they've been on their journey to transform the way they deliver cancer care. And so part of that transformation, they recognize that leadership and physician leadership is critical to that success. And so they partnered with us to design and deliver a physician leadership academy for the physician, in addition to all the other programs that they had going on. So we've been working with now 2 cohorts of physician that they have selected from various specialties. We have done a comprehensive 360 assessment so that we only identify the strength, but also the development area, customize a targeted curriculum for that, for them. They meet together on a monthly basis. They get together on a monthly basis, so they're learning together. So leadership is no longer about developing individual leaders, but it's about collective leadership. So they get to be coached as a group. But then also it's all the applied learning that we talked about earlier. So the organization selected key issues that they're trying to drive as part of their transformation. So type of examples that they're working collectively as a group are around the physician role in transforming from volume to value. This one was an exciting project because the physicians collaborated together to really understand and see where their colleagues and their peers are of even understanding the difference between volume to value. And then they really designed an intervention and they educated their peers around what did that look like and how it's going to impact our practices. And that would have gone a long way from just somebody walking in and saying, we need to focus on volume to value, to really having peer-to-peer conversation about that. Another one is around the palliative care and how do you change and transform palliative care in a value-based care environment, and that has to change the way practices are set up and the way we work collaboratively within the team and then also with the patients and the family. Now also projects and the teams are working on things like how do we improve the workflow and make it more efficient so that the experience of the patient is more effective. And then finally, how do we really measure and make sure that we really are delivering quality care? So that's Moffitt Cancer Center really is leading the way of recognizing that we need to invest in our leaders, and then they're really doing something about it.
Given Moffitt's commitment to transformation for change, what's been the outcome?
Yeah, so we measure everything before and after. And not in addition to the projects that the physicians, they collaborated together on finding solution for, such as palliative care, and really understanding and educating their peers around volume to value. We measured and asked them for their perception about their abilities of being able to do and perform leadership skills and apply the learning that they have. So what we got from measuring before and after, things like 56% improving in their ability to be able to communicate and influence others. A huge improvement in dealing with difficult situations and difficult conversations. Now they're more comfortable. It's like 112% of that. Ability to be able to understand the financial implication of their actions, all the way to their own satisfaction with their work environment, and then being able to work with their team more effectively, communicate more effectively. There were all of those were outcomes that they have told us that had impact their ability before and after.
Well, I'm interested in hearing more from folks from Moffitt.
Absolutely.
Dr. Heimbuch, thank you for joining us this morning. I wonder if you would just give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Dörte Heimbeck. I'm the Director of Organizational Development with Moffitt Cancer Center. I've been with the institution a little bit over 5 years and have begun my career there focusing primarily on development as it relates to team member. I think that's a very traditional approach. Often we overlook physician as a key stakeholder group in our work, and I found a very supportive institution who wanted me to explore ways to include the physicians in our leadership programs. So I'm excited about the partnership that we have created with the Physician Leadership Institute, and proud of the second cohort that will graduate in October, and we're in the process of selecting new team physicians for the third cohort.
You're the person that's responsible for having a physician leadership program at Moffitt Cancer Center. How did you recognize the need for this program?
I think it doesn't take much to recognize that there is a need for leadership development in any hospital for physicians. One reason is that there's not, at least not traditionally, a strong focus on leadership development for physicians as they go through medical school. However, many of them find themselves in leadership roles later on in their careers, and some feel unprepared for it. Some are natural talents, others express a desire to build on a skill set that they find and discover in themselves. The second reason is simply, if you're talking about transforming healthcare, the people in the front lines, the people who deal with the patients, need to be involved in that, and not just as a bystander or as someone who provides feedback, but really as the integral part and an integral component of that transformation.
What have you seen as a result of your investment?
So I've been very pleasantly surprised not only by how the physicians have embraced this leadership development program, how engaged they have been throughout the sessions, but also how they bring it to their everyday practice with patients and in the administration of a cancer center like ours. They have stepped up, they volunteer, they're just much more vocal and feel more confident in participating in decision making and the leadership of the hospital, and I think that's exactly where they belong.
And have you seen any impact on the operations of the hospital?
Yeah, I think some of our change initiatives have gone a little bit smoother and have received better physician acceptance and buy-in because it's a peer speaking to them about the benefits of a change. It's a peer speaking to other physicians explaining the need for the change, and that just goes a much longer way than an administrator trying to do the same.
And have you seen any difference in terms of relationship to patients?
I'm somewhat removed from observing those interactions day to day. What I do see is that the way the physicians talk about their practice has changed a little bit. So they report on better relationship building with their patients through the program. And I see most of all better networking between physicians who can become somewhat isolated in their practice, and their ability to reach out to a cohort member, to one of the alumni, so to speak, and brainstorm ideas or simply talk, simply connect on a physician-to-physician level, I think is improving how they respond to patients as well.
Well, thank you very much for taking a few minutes with us. So, Dr. Apte, thank you so much for joining us today. I wonder if you would just tell us a little bit about your background, introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm a gynecologic oncologist at Moffitt Cancer Center. I've been there for 10 years, and I'm currently chair of the department. In addition to my role as chair, I also have a lot of interest in performance improvement and quality. And I think Moffitt is a great place for me to continue to grow.
Dr. Apte, why physician leadership?
I don't think there's ever been a time in healthcare that's more important than now for physician leadership. That doesn't mean that physicians need to run every institution. That's not what I mean. I think every single person in healthcare brings something to the table, whether it's a hospital administrator or someone who is grounded as a CPA or a nursing or social work. Everyone's important. But this is a time when physicians really need to step up. I think historically, in the last several decades, physicians have taken a back seat to the changes that are happening in healthcare. We have not always been as we have not shown as much initiative as we should in defending the art and practice of medicine. It's about the patient. I'm all for standardization when you can, making processes efficient, but there are aspects to medicine which still remain an art to some degree. And I think that physicians understand medicine very, very well. That's what we're trained to do. And I think that there's no time that's more important than now when a physician can step up and truly understand the balance of all the resources at stake, meaning, whether they're financial resources, human resources, constraints, obviously providing the best medical care. I think physicians are in the best position to be able to understand all these complicated interdependent factors to help drive policy, whether that's government policy, policy within a large organization, a hospital, or in a department. I think it's really incumbent on physicians to step up and voice our opinion in terms of what we think is best for the patient, what's best for healthcare, to create a system going forward that's best for patients and is most sustainable.
I'm Marilyn Bowie. I'm a board-certified pathologist.
I wonder if you could speak to one other point and the difference between what are your thoughts about clinician and clinician leader?
So when you are in the leadership role, that doesn't mean you're necessarily a great leader. So I think from the Cancer Center point of view, it is extremely wise for the leadership to invest on the physicians, because I feel like with the change in healthcare, and if everybody can play a role in transforming into effective leaders, so we can have influence on the people surround us, and then each one of us will become a little pebble, and hopefully we will inspire this ripple effect and inspire transformation, and we will transform from ourselves first, then make the system, make the change that is better serve the patient, better deliver our roles in research and in education.
And so has this changed the way you present yourself to your colleagues?
It does. I'll be honest with you. I approach challenges or making decisions in a different way. I sort of look at it not only from my perspective, but ultimately in the goal I'm trying to achieve. And also, I think I'm a better listener. I listen to people and take their thoughts and their opinions much more at heart. And when I make a decision, I think ultimately I try to be much more conscientious of that.
Well, thank you very much for spending a few minutes with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So how does an organization start? Where do they begin?
Yeah, so what I would love to leave you with is really thinking about what can you do as an organization, but then also what can you do as a leader at the end of this webinar. So from an organization perspective, if you want to start, think about those things as LED. And it's really about shining the light on this issue of developing your leaders. So LED stands for listen, engage, and develop. So on the listening side, you really want to engage the physicians and your team members who are really what we call the silent majority. Those are the ones that are out there, the closest with the patients. They really engage in the day-to-day and really are not necessarily in a leadership role. But you want to listen to their concern, and you really want to listen to how you really can bring them along and develop their skills so that they become the next leader, or they really are more effective in the trenches. The E is really about engaging them in a meaningful situation. So how do we create opportunities where they're involved in something that they care about or they should be caring about, and something that gives them the opportunity to apply the learning. What you heard from our conversations with Moffitt Cancer Center, where they really are engaged in opportunity of how do you transform from volume to value. And so how do I educate? I don't even know about it. How do I educate myself and educate my peer? And then the last one is really the D about develop. You have to make the investment in developing those skill sets You can't just leave it up to chance, but you have to also develop them collectively and not individually just send them somewhere and bring them back. So that will set the stage to transform the culture of the organization. So those three things is what you could do collectively as an organization. Now let me share with you what you can do as a leader to really engage and develop and where you really want to start. We talked about the model of leading with purpose, leading with strategy, leading self, leading people, and leading for results. And kind of how do you really focus on the human doing, but also the human being. Within this model, what I would encourage you as a leader today at the end of this webinar is really on the leading with strategy is really to embrace the uncertainty that we're dealing with. We at healthcare, we really are transforming and really doing that. We are in the midst of it. There's a lot of dust. It's just like remodeling our house. It's messy, but we know at the end it's going to be better. So helping your team and really helping yourself really be dealing with uncertainty and having a focus on where we're going is critical. Leading self, just Gandhi said it very well. We should be the change that we want to see in others. And so we have to be that change and we have to role model that aspect. So leading self by really being that change that we want to see. Leading people is really, at the end of the day, is about engaging the heart. It's building those trusting relationships. It's making the time to build those relationships and ensuring that you have healthy relationship with the people that work with you every day. And then finally, leading for results. We have to make it happen. And so if you were thinking about investing and engaging your leaders, this is the time to start working through that. Starts with all of us, and then really engaging the rest of the team that's out there. And then the last thing is about leading with purpose, not forgetting that at the end of the day, it has to end up how really we improve the way we care for our patients and making this truly a great second curve for us in healthcare.